All right. Good morning and welcome to another weekly wisdom. Every Tuesday at 9 a.m., we go live and we talk about a DEI tip that hopefully is helpful and succinct. And you can tune in for less than 10 minutes to learn something new about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hi, I'm Natalia Eileen. I lead C Network, and I'm excited to give you another weekly wisdom. Today's weekly wisdom is about DEI councils. This is something that we hear people ask us about all the time, all the questions about DEI councils. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about the 4 things all DEI councils should have. And, you know, I made a whole list before doing this today. I literally sat down and had like 12, 13 things that came to the top of my head as I was thinking about this topic, and then chose the 4 that maybe people would think about the least. But I say that to say that this is not an exhaustive list. DEI councils and the work that they do are so important. So I hope you're really thinking seriously about how you're developing your diversity, equity, and inclusion council and what it means to put it together in a way that's effective. So these 4 things will hopefully help, but they're not exhaustive. Now, before we talk about the 4 things that that all DEI councils should have, let's quickly talk about what a DEI council is. So if you're unfamiliar with a DEI council or DEI committee or DEI task force, some of them are meant to exist for a very standard fixed period of time. Those are usually the task forces. Others of them are meant to progress for as long as necessary in order to really accelerate diversity, equity, and inclusion within an organization. They're typically made out of employees across an organization of different levels, of different backgrounds, not just those who are specifically in HR or those who are just specifically in diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a really great way to collaboratively work toward your DEI goals. And that's what a DEI council is, or task force, or committee, or whatever your organization has decided to call it. Now, we're going to jump right in with 4 things all DEI councils should have. The first of which I'll share is co-chairs. Again, maybe this is not something that would come to mind for you if you were thinking about this, but my emphasis here is on the co. What we sometimes see happen when we have organizations start DEI task forces or DEI councils or DEI committees is that they'll have one person in charge. And that can make this a really tricky experience for the whole committee because it's all resting on this one person. And chances are that one person isn't doing this DEI committee full time. Chances are that one person is actually doing their day job and supporting this DEI committee. So what we always suggest is that when you're thinking about the leadership of this DEI council, you consider building in a structure that includes co-chairs, that includes 2 people holding each other accountable to working together, and even better, if you can stagger their terms so that you have people filling in and you have one of them who's helping and supporting the other one as things go. There's a ton of just really smart best practices around how to structure DEI councils. And this is one that we sometimes see people's eyes light up like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So I wanted to make sure we shared it. That's number 1. The next thing that all DEI councils should have is a connection to the DEI mission. Now, here's something I'm not sure of. Within every organization, there's a different process to how your organization might decide to go about creating a DEI mission. So I'm not sure if your DEI committee came first or if your DEI mission came first. Either way, you're going to want to make sure that your DEI committee is connected to your DEI mission. So if that means that actually your DEI committee came first or DEI council came first, then you're going to want to work with your company leadership, your organization leadership to create that DEI mission so that you know what you're doing, so that you know what your North Star is, so that you know which direction the whole organization is seeking to go. If there is a DEI mission and vision that's already been set, great. You can work with your leadership or you can refer to that DEI statement as you go along and create those subcommittees in all the work that you're doing. But this is important. You're going to want to make sure that there's something that's really holding you to the next level, to that vision that you all have set for yourselves. And having that DEI mission is an important way to do that. Okay, here is the next one. So we talked about connection to the DEI mission. Now let's talk a little bit more practically about a feedback tool. So maybe this is something that you're already thinking about, but sometimes it's helpful to be able to touch base with your fellow employees, with your peers, and hear what they're really seeking to get out of their experience within their company as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Having some sort of means to touch into those spaces, hear how people are thinking, what they're feeling can be really useful. So a survey can be useful. Having some focus groups while you're pulling people in and asking them questions about their experience thus far within the organization. Organizing something that will allow you to get a baseline understanding of where the company is and how it feels about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then get a further understanding a few months in after you've done some work. That feedback tool will be really important. And having a subcommittee or something like that to support the feedback tool can be really, really useful. This is something that not all DEI councils think to do, but obviously DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, can be very metrics-based. It can be very measurement-driven, and this is one way to ensure that your DEI council is supporting that. So that was number 3. We have one more, and then I actually have a bonus for you. So another one that you can be thinking about is internal training plan. Sometimes a DEI council comes together and they have the best intentions and they're really passionate and interested in this work. But let's face it, DEI is complicated. These topics are tricky. They're important for us to really absorb and learn and grow on our own. Even those of us who are in diversity, equity, and inclusion in the field spend a lot of time growing as much as we can and learning as much as we can about everything from identity to systemic injustice to organizational effectiveness and all of that kind of learning to stakeholder management. All of these different tools are skills that DEI councils will also have to start developing if they're going to be effective. So you'll want to consider finding ways to train internally to that DEI council and not just assume that because everybody in there has raised their hands, they're ready to talk about these topics or to fully support the organization in that way. So this is something that is really important. If you haven't thought about a training plan for your organization's DEI council or DEI committee, I highly encourage you to consider it. So just a quick recap so that I'm able to give you a bonus tip. We talked about co-chairs. We talked about connection to DEI mission. We talked about a feedback tool, and we talked about internal training. I want to give you one other thing that every DEI counselor should have before I close out. And that last thing is recognition. Now, this might seem a little strange, but this is super important. And this is your 5th bonus tip for what a DEI council should have. Now, this is not always within the bounds or within the power of a DEI council. But if you lead an organization that's putting together a DEI council or DEI committee or DEI task force, you'll want to make sure that as a leader, you are giving this organization recognition and ensuring that people across the organization understand why it's important. And you may also want to create some formal measures that allow this group to be recognized through performance reviews or on some special newsletter that maybe goes out with your name on it as a leader. That recognition is very important. It gives this council legitimacy and allows people who are likely doing work outside of their day job to keep going. All right. Well, those were your tips this week for this week's Weekly Wisdom. Those were the 4 things all DEI councils should have in less than 10 minutes. I hope you join us next time as we dig into these concepts. And remember, you can learn more about us at cnetwork.com or sign up for a consultation anytime, and we can talk about your DEI council or whatever else you need help with in the DEI world. Thanks, everyone.